Hey everybody, I'm going to do a bit of a Friday Reads video on here today to sort of jumpstart the channel going again. Just talk about what I've been reading, a few different physical books and an ebook as well, but I'm going to start with a magazine article. I'm still working through the January Atlantic. And I only read a couple articles out of it so far. The article about Seamus Haney, which is really good, and get to the right page here. Today I read the article about, it's called "What Happens When You Lose Your Country." Kind of a beautiful spread there. But anyhow, it's about the 1893 coup, U.S.-backed coup of Hawaii, and the author interviews and profiles a few different personalities that are on sort of all of these different sides of Hawaiian. Well, some are on Hawaiian independence movements, and some are working more within the U.S. government or within the state government to help Native Hawaiians, just with the problems they have, perhaps to some extent brought about by, not being owners of their native land. Anyhow, it takes a look at a lot of different sides of the issue or situation. And was a really informative and well done article, I thought. So that's the most recent. That's what I've read this week in terms of magazines or periodicals, and then ebooks. I've been slowly reading a story or two every few days from Ted Chiang's, I think that's how you say his name, Exhalation. Hopefully you can see that. Okay. I've just been reading that on Kindle. Not on this Kindle, but this has the color screen. This is just a Fire. So hopefully the cover looks better on there than in the grayscale, just normal Kindle that I actually read on. But I think I've read maybe 3 stories, the first 3 stories. And I'm enjoying them. The first one was really interesting. It's sort of almost an Arabian Nights kind of playing off that, and but about a time machine, but that works differently. Not a time machine in which travels, but a time portal sort of through which one travels, but really about knowledge and changing the past is maybe not what would be important, but maybe just acquiring a little bit of a different perspective on the past makes the events of the past seem different for you. So that was a really good story. The next couple stories just sort of so-so for me, but the one that I'm reading now, which is kind of the long one of the book, I think I'm into. So we'll see. This year for me I've been trying to get into reading fantasy and some sci-fi. I've been focusing on fantasy first. Probably next year will be sci-fi. But this book is definitely both. It's mixing fantasy and sci-fi. So I'll talk more about that probably as we go. Actually, today I don't have any fantasy to talk about, but there will be more this year as I'm sort of reading, moving through some very well-known fantasy series that hopefully you'll get to hear about too. But let's see. Let's start. I recently traveled to Montreal, Quebec, and well, no, I had this already, but Louise Penny, Still Life. This is the first book of her Three Pines series with Inspector Gamache. I think that's how you say his name. My French is Jepu, very poor, very small, very little. But anyway, I started reading this in Montreal. I waited until I was there. And not that it's really set much in Montreal, but it is some. That's where the police are sort of based out of. And it's a very enjoyable read. I'm maybe 115 pages into it. And it's, it's a cozy mystery so far, but really interesting. I mean, Gamache is one of the, so far, and I'm just getting introduced to him, but he's, definitely, I can tell, going to be one of the more interesting characters in terms of detectives that I've read. And the world of Three Pines, is a small town, a small village in Quebec, kind of on the American border, and kind of one of those classic cozy northeastern for the U.S. northeastern villages, it's a lot of fun. There's a younger character detective, and she is sort of learning from Gamache, so that dynamic is happening, which is really cool. It seems really fun so far, but also really good. There's some really good lines and good ideas and thoughts, and the characterization is really well done too. So I'm enjoying this so far. I also, same trip, was in New York. I travel a lot for music. I'm a musician, so I get to kind of tag bookstores onto that a lot. So I went to the Strand for the first time in New York, which I had never been to, but had wanted to go to for a long time, and walked all through it. I think I saw every shelf, and did not even buy one used book because my suitcase was maxed out. Actually, on the flight back home, I almost had to unload something from my suitcase and try to cram it in my backpack, but they let me through, let me slide. So I just bought one book there, and it's actually a new book, and a Strand signed edition, so the author signed it at the Strand. But it's called The Bookshop, and it's about it's a history. It bills itself as a history of the American bookstore. Rocky, what are you doing? It's my cat. He's digging around in something. But it's a history of the American bookstore, sort of as told through these smaller stories about specific bookstores, or maybe a bookstore scene, like Book Row in New York. The book starts with Benjamin Franklin, and so it's starting all the way from kind of the beginning of the book selling trade in the U.S. Well, it wasn't the U.S. then, and then we're talking about the old corner bookstore in Boston, and the Transcendentalists, and then we move to New York, and there's a chapter on I can't remember the name, but a chapter on a bookstore in New York. Then there's a chapter on the Strand, which is the chapter I just finished. So I thought it was cool to have bought a book about partially the Strand, at the Strand. Definitely want to go back sometime and buy where I'm driving, or at least have a lot more luggage space, and buy some used books. But anyhow, this is very enjoyable. I guess I'm at chapter 7 now, so I have forgotten a couple of chapters. Oh, the Gotham Bookmark, that's the name of the store I was talking about. And then there's the Marshall Field and Company, which is a Chicago bookstore, was a Chicago bookstore, and Parnassus on Wheels, which is a chapter about mobile bookshops at the beginning of the 20th century, and a little fad sort of that happened because of a certain novel about a mobile bookseller, which there's a mobile bookseller around here now where I live, and that's a cool idea. Really, really into that. That's really cool. I've shopped there once. Anyhow, though, this is an enjoyable book. It's not, super. It's I would sort of call it light nonfiction. It's well researched and well written, but not it's not going to make any really world changing claims or anything. But it's a nice kind of fun tour through a bunch of different American bookshops, which who doesn't want that? There are also these little interstitial short pieces between each chapter, little mini chapters, I guess you would call them, or something, about different parts of a bookstore, kind of different parts of an American bookstore. Like the one right before that, the last one I read is called The Cat, and it's about a cat, a bookstore cat, and bookstore cats in general. Or before the Gotham Book Mart chapter, The Architect, about a bookstore that Frank Lloyd Wright designed. Before Marshall Field and Company, The Artist and the Suffragette, about the Women's National Book Association and women booksellers and that sort of thing. So anyway, yeah, cool book. I would recommend it for people who love books and who love bookstores and love browsing for books. Okay, now a couple of longer term books I've been reading. This is for a book club I'm in with a couple of professors that I had. I've recently moved back to my hometown last year, and have started a book club with a couple of my professors from the school where I went to college at, which is really fun, along with a friend. And so for that, we're reading The Tenant of Wildfell Hall, and I'm just about finished with it. Have about 100 pages left, and it's really good. I've liked it so far. It's a nested narrative. I won't ruin it, but or spoil it. But we have a main character, Gilbert. At sort of the beginning, the first third of the novel, there's this woman that has moved into Wildfell Hall, and he's just sort of feels mysterious. She's mysterious to him, and attractive in a way to him, but there's a mystery about it. You can't figure out what her circumstances are, why she acts the way that she does to him and to other characters. And so eventually you get her narrative through a journal or a diary where she's telling her story leading us up to that point. And that part has been tougher for me to read, just because it is such a hard story. I mean, it's a really negative story. She's had a hard life with a bad man, and it goes on for a long time. And this, you sort of have to read about this really brutish behavior from this guy for a long time, and it can kind of be a lot, but it's also really, really well done. But I could just tell that I slowed down. I've slowed down through that part. There's only so much awful male behavior that I guess I can stomach in my reading at one time. So, but it's been very good, and I'm almost in the story back to the present, from her nested narrative. And so I'm looking forward to finishing this and talking with them about it. But it's very good. I've really enjoyed it. And it's in the middle part in pieces, slowly. And then I've started a project to read through a lot of classics, and I'm reading the Iliad right now as part of that. I'm about halfway through getting ready to start on book 12. I've been reading through the Fadiman literature plan. Well, I haven't read much of it. I mean, you know, the Odyssey and the Iliad take up so much time that I've been doing that a while, and I read this slowly. I try to read like 5 pages a day or so, and you know, it does feel like an eternity. I don't really love reading about fighting that much, or war in particular, but there's more here than that. I mean, there's great literature for one. I mean, there's maybe my favorite thing about the Iliad so far, which is just, you know, Homer. True for the Odyssey as well, but these great comparisons, these great metaphors, where that are based in the natural world, you know, and it's kind of the same thing that you run across in the Bible, you know, prophecies, you know, like the prophets or Jesus' parables, you know, the different, you know, that's how people at this time, that's the comparisons they could make, were sort of grounded in the natural world, you know. But I wonder if I could find one really quick. Yeah, here we go. And Atreides led the way, and Ajax took his lead, striding on like a god, until they found Odysseus, dear to Zeus. But round him Trojans thronged like tawny jackals up in the mountains, swarming round a horned stag just wounded. A hunter's hit him with one fast shaft from his bow, and the stag's escaped, sprinting at top speed so long as his blood runs warm, and the spring in his knees still lasts. But soon the swift arrow saps his strength. The ravening carrion packs begin their feasting, off on a ridge in twilight woods, until some god, some power, drives a lion down against them, claw mad, and the panicked jackals scatter. The lion rends their prey. So packed around Odysseus, skilled and quick to maneuver, swarmed the brave bulk of Trojans. And that's not my favorite of those metaphors, but it gives you an example. And I really like them. I mean, they're just so, you know, Homer is sort of a master of the kind of the quick, sometimes the long, but kind of the quick aside, you know, to where he's just fully invested in this, you know, 10 line or so, you know, alternate image that he's just going to keep going through. You know, he's going to be really clear with it, and paint that picture, but as a part of this overall larger event that's happening. Anyway, I'm reading this slowly. Book 12, I'm ready to start. The last 2 books have been just fighting, you know, and the tale of maybe a particular character's exploits on the battlefield that day. And, you know, kind of say the same about, you know, the middle section of the Tenant of Wildfell Hall, is that, you know, sort of bits and pieces are how I can't just totally binge read ancient Greek, you know, war literature. It's just not totally my thing. But Rocky has been very feisty today. I don't know if he just thinks it's weird that I'm talking so much to a little black phone, you know, a little black rectangle. But he's playing with something now, and you can probably hear it on the video. But he's so cute that he can get away with messing up my videos. Anyway, I'm enjoying the Iliad, and you'll probably hear about it for still quite a while as I slowly make my way through it. But anyway, thank you. This is my first Friday reads ever, so thanks for watching, and I hope to keep doing this, and excited to get back into it, and happy to have you along. Thanks.